All right, welcome back, everybody, to Eagles Power Hour, your Eastern Washington affiliate on the Big Sky Podcast Network. I am your host, Patrick Frakes, and we are here to preview Eastern's matchup with the number 2 in the country, Montana State Bobcats, in Cheney this weekend. Hey, it's going to be a tough matchup, guys. Um, Montana State is a really, really good football team. I think Eastern's a better football team than what 2-7 or 2-6 shows, but um, it's been a rough year for Eastern. It's been a really, really fun, dominant year for Montana State. Arguably, to this point in the season, probably the most dominant looking team, probably in the whole country. You know, they've been the most dominant team from start to finish in all three phases. In my opinion, watching the top four teams in the country, uh, they've been the most consistent. Their one caveat is, hey, they haven't played the level of competition that some of the other big, top four teams in the country have played in the Missouri Valley. But believe me, guys, Montana State is really damn good. And what has kind of led them to this point? Montana State right now, they're 8-0. They're undefeated. They have an FBS win. They have wins at New Mexico. That was their FBS win. And then they rattled off another 7 straight wins at Utah Tech versus Maine versus Mercyhurst for their out-of-conference schedule. None of these games were close. The New Mexico game was close, but that's an FBS opponent, right? Utah Tech, Maine, and Mercyhurst, they won those games 31-7, 41-14, and 52-13. Not even slightly a concern in the world against all three of those teams. Then they went down to Pocatello. They had to battle a little bit, but they ended up beating Idaho State by a score of 37-17 at the end of it. It wasn't. It was more like a 30-17 game. Montana State kind of put in a garbage time touchdown, but there was a little bit of competitiveness in that game. However, Montana State really controlled the game overall. Then they hosted Northern Colorado for homecoming, whooped them by a bunch. Then this was a game versus Idaho that was considered to be, it was game of the week nationally. It was supposed to be kind of a de facto Big Sky championship October 12th. And that game, Idaho's down to their third string quarterback, and they just smoked Idaho 38-7. And man, that was when I realized personally that damn, Montana State is for real, because Idaho's a top 10 team right now. They're number 7 in the National FCS poll, or the National FCS committee bracket, which they came out with earlier this week. Their top 10 as of now, as in, hey, if the season ended right now, this would be the top 10 seeds. Idaho was number 7. Montana State was number 2. Other Big Sky schools in there. UC Davis was 5. Montana was 10. Crazy as Eagle fans. This is the 4th top 10 team we were playing this year. Brutal. But anyways, after the Idaho win, they went to Portland State, and again, no contest, 44-14. And so they've dominated everyone they've played, aside from their week 0 matchup with New Mexico, where Tommy Mellott fumbled away 2 touchdowns, and it was just kind of a weird game with them. And Montana State definitely does not have the strength of schedule. They really have only played 1, maybe 2 teams, and that are kind of worth anything in the Big Sky right now, right? You got Idaho, but they also got Idaho off of like 8 straight games against top 10 or against top 25 teams or FBS teams with a battered third string quarterback. And a lot of things going in Montana State's favor. That also was like a game that clearly Montana State had circled on the schedule. But they really have just dominated everyone that they've played. The Montana State is a damn good football team. They were on the bye last week, getting their first rest of the year. But generally, guys, like Montana State is a really, really good football team. And granted, they've only played in 1 competitive football game all year. And they won it. They had to come from behind late in that game, and they won it at New Mexico. Granted, that was a game they were favored by 10 points in, but Um, in my opinion, right now, I don't think there's a team that's looked more dominant than Montana State nationally. And the only caveat is, hey, they haven't played anybody, and so they're going to play some people these final 4 weeks. They have Eastern, Sac State, UC Davis, and Montana. But right now, this is Montana State's conference to lose. Montana State's probably they're the best team in the conference by a long shot, right? So, you know, I mean, last year for Montana State was disappointing. They lost in the quarterfinals, I believe, or it might have been the set. They played North Dakota State in the second round, but they came in this year. They lost Sean Chambers, who Eagle fans know and hate slash love because he ran all over us a couple years. But Tommy Malott is the guy now, and he's been the guy, but he shared time with Sean Chambers. Now it is just Tommy Malott's show, and we'll roll this into kind of what Montana State does offensively. Hey, I mean, if you've heard anything about Montana State, they are a run the ball football team. They lead the Big Sky in rushing, 310 yards per game on the ground, which is just ridiculous. And then they're also, I mean, they're lower on the totem pole in terms of passing, but they really haven't had to at all. They're still averaging 200 yards through the air per game offensively. This is the number one offense in the conference, and actually, it's the number one offense in terms of total offense in the country, guys. They are number one ahead of some of the more prolific offenses you hear from. You look at Monmouth, who I mean, we saw that team, but Monmouth, Abilene Christian, Stephen F. Austin, Montana. Montana State's ahead of all these guys. They're averaging 512 yards per game, averaging, let's see, 310 yards on the ground. This team can run the damn ball with the best of them. Probably the best team in. I mean, they are the best team in the country in terms of rushing. And guess what? Eastern doesn't do too great at is stopping the run, and so that's going to be a huge deal for Eastern. Is like, hey, can we stop the run at all? Because Montana State has a unique ability to have explosive runs, not just hey, we're gonna you know rush for 4 or 5 yards a clip all game. They have been very good at rushing the ball explosively. They're averaging 6.7 yards a carry on the season, which is pretty damn good. 25 rushing touchdowns is insane. Uh, this Montana State offense just has weapons all over it on the ground, and they are spearheaded by. I'd say right now they look like potentially the best offensive line in the country up front there, and they still don't even have probably. I mean, one of their best players. Oh man, what's his name? Perkins, I believe his name is. Let me look it up. Justice Perkins. He was I believe he was an All American center or All Conference center last year. He's been out all year, and I don't think he is rumored to return or anything like that. But the offensive line for them has just generally been very good. The big name there is Marcus Ware. He played tackle. He's played a little bit of guard this year. But Ware, he's one of I'd say he's probably the best offensive lineman in the conference up there with Jackson Slater. But in terms of the main four guys that we're going to have to worry about carrying the football, it starts all with Tommy Malott. Tommy Malott was he's probably right now he's one of the Walter Payton Award candidates right now. He's been the most efficient passer in the country. He doesn't have like really high he doesn't have really high when it comes to like statistics through the air. He doesn't have like high yardage counts or high touchdown counts, but he has been the most efficient passer in the country. And I don't believe he has. I don't think he has turned the ball over once yet this year. I'll have to find that, but man, he's just been super efficient and takes care of the ball. And he's been lucky to not really have to deal with many of the issues that come with being a quarterback in a rushing team. One of those being like sometimes, you know, sometimes he just doesn't really get handed the ball much, and he just hasn't needed to. Sometimes when you have a really run heavy team, if they're forced to throw the ball late in games, they have problems. That's not the type of team that this is. Tommy Malot's a capable passer. He is not a Paxton DeLaurent. Trying to think of a reference. Miles Hastings of UC Davis. He's not that style of quarterback. He's a run first style of quarterback. My comp for Eagle fans to understand, if you haven't watched Montana State, if you haven't, get out from under that rock. We play them every year, but Tommy Malott is kind of like a more polished version of Jared Taylor. Is my uh, best interpretation of it. Except he throws the ball way more often than Jared Taylor, obviously. But Tommy Malott, hey, he has a really, really good deep ball, great arm, and he's been improving in the intermediate to short passing game. That's where the weakness of his game has been. And this year has been the best version of Tommy Malott that I have personally seen in his 4 years of playing. Starting at Montana State, I think this is the best version of Tommy Malott we've seen, and the best team he's been on as well. This is probably the best Montana State team I can remember in recent history, right? Tommy looks really good. The one small kind of thing I've seen in his game is when he does get pressure, there is sometimes some issues. He gets a little squirrely with it. We saw that in the New Mexico game. And part of that could be, hey, he got hit early and it could have just kind of messed with him a little bit. But that has not been a problem in another game since then. And, we'll see for this Montana State team looking forward. But, hey, Tommy Malott's he's been that guy this year. And if he continues on the pace that he is at, he's going to be probably invited to Frisco, regardless if the team's there or not, for the Walter Payton Award. The Walter Payton Award night, whatever they call it, the ceremony that they do down there. They have 3 running backs that we are going to have to pay really close attention to as Eagle fans. Number 20, the starter for the last few years has been, or the last few weeks has been Scott Trey Humphrey. He's been the one through week 10, I believe we're in now, or 11, whatever we're at. Scott Trey Humphrey, hey, he's a Seattle guy. He went to Rainier Beach High School. Man, it sucks that he got out of Washington. But anyways, Scott Trey Humphrey is a stud, 5'10", 210 running back. He's only a sophomore, and he really started on the depth chart as like a 2, but he's a very well kind of balanced back. A little bit bigger, but he's not like a slow back by any means. He doesn't have like the biggest breakaway speed you've ever seen, but hey, he's an explosive play threat, really good feet, and he moves the ball. He's very good at cutting and making the most of smaller gaps and stuff. The guy that's been the 2 so far this year, really started the year at number 3, is freshman Adam Jones. And man, when you talk about home run threats, Adam Jones is, man, he's a hell of a home run threat. That dude can run so damn fast. He's number 23, 6'1", 200 pounds, freshman. He's a Missoula kid that went to Montana State. I love that. I mean, I got to give him respect for leaving Missoula for Bozeman. But, hey, Adam Jones is a stud, dude. He maybe he doesn't get the consistent like 3 yards a carry like Scott Trey Humphrey has been able to, but Adam Jones seems to have broken off bigger runs throughout the year. He's the more explosive guy. And I don't know if there's a good comp. These 2 guys are probably, this is the best running back room in the conference, in my opinion. And I don't think it's very close considering, hey, the guy that started all last year, he is number 32, I believe, Julius Davis. He is a Wisconsin transfer. There's a pretty good chance he's back this week. So their starting running back has been out for 9 weeks. And of course, he's going to come back the week that they come to Cheney. Number 32, Julius Davis. He's a big bruising type back. He's only 5'10", 195, but he feels like a bigger bruiser type of back. He's not like the fastest guy you've ever seen. He doesn't necessarily have that like a super mega explosive speed, especially coming off of an injury the way he has. But that's the guy that Montana State can count on 5 yards a carry. and he's really going to punch you in the mouth type of running back. That all three of these guys kind of complement each other really well. You have the 5 yards a carry type guy and Julius Davis. He's very consistent. Then you have Scott Trey Humphrey, who's kind of like a hybrid of, hey, he's fast enough to hit a home run for you, but he still is consistent enough to get you at least 3-4 yards a carry. And he's shifty, but not like he's shifty and really good footwork. He's kind of between the power back and the speed back. Adam Jones is your speed back. He's the guy that he's going to hit the hole and he's gone. Those three guys, they all complement each other very well. And we didn't even talk about like the most dangerous part of Tommy Mellott's game is that dude can run, and he was leaned on very heavily in the run game the last 3 years as a starter. This year, they really haven't been running him nearly as much. Tommy Mellott he's a run first guy. He's more explosive on the ground than he is a passer. But they've been limiting the hits for him, limiting the times he hits the ground by design, because they don't really have an effective backup this year like they've had in the years past, and it has been really working for him. And you got to think this is the thing with him taking less tackles and being leaned on less in the run game is it makes him more of a home run threat. In the past, he was a guy that like anytime he ran, he's getting 4 or 5 yards because he's just so good at like those little last second cuts that allow him to, like, when he gets hit, he bounces forward for 2-3 yards rather than, just stopping in his tracks like many quarterbacks do. He was very good at that. And this year, he doesn't really run as much. So like teams get more locked in on those running backs that are just damn good. So that when Tommy Mellott pulls it, he usually goes more than 10 yards every time he pulls the ball, because he's been pretty damn impressive. He's been pretty damn impressive to watch, guys. I'm not even gonna lie. Let me see if I can find his rushing stats, because they are pretty crazy. Here are the rushing stats. Scott Trey Humphrey leads the team in rushing. He's averaging 119 yards a game, 7.6 yards a carry, and 10 touchdowns. He has 952 yards on the season. Adam Jones has 457 yards on the season, averaging 6 yards a carry, and he has 5 touchdowns. He has a long of 93, 65 yards a game. Tommy Mellott is averaging where's my number? 8 yards a carry for Tommy Mellott. He has 7 rushing touchdowns. He has a long of 65, averaging 52 yards a game. And that's on, let's see, only 49 attempts for him to get 458 yards, which is, man, that is pretty damn incredible. He's lost 37 yards on sacks and stuff, but dude, Tommy Mellott has been playing out of his mind. Like I said, that's just a running game, guys. They're a run first team, but in the passing game, they have some very capable weapons as well. Tommy Mellott has been a solid passer. He's averaging 100 yards a game, 180 yards a game through the air. He's not thrown a pick yet. 70% passing, 1,400 yards and 17 passing touchdowns already so far this year. Man, he is just having one hell of a year. But some of the weapons for him, Rohan Jones, the tight end, has actually been the team's leading receiver. Number 8, he was a Maine transfer, I believe. He has 6 receiving touchdowns. He's averaging 17 yards a catch, 38 yards a game. That's pretty impressive for a tight end. Taco Dowler, he's more of a speedy slot receiver for them. He's their punt returner. He has 268 receiving yards on the year, 5 touchdowns. All of these guys have like a 50-plus yard long reception or run or pass. So all of these guys have some ridiculous stats. Taco Dowler is probably the number one. He's the most explosive receiver. Ty McCullough is probably the number 1 receiver in terms of how often he's targeted, along with Rohan Jones. Ty McCullough, number 6. He has 20 receptions for 222 yards. 27 yards a game is his average, 2 touchdowns. But don't let the low numbers don't let the low numbers kind of distract you from the fact that all three of those guys are pretty damn good players. The other name, hey, Adam Jones is a threat out of the backfield as well through the air. He's averaging 20 yards a game, but he has taken a 50-yard touchdown in the screen game. Uh, all these guys are pretty damn explosive. They have such a long list of guys that have caught a ball just because like they've been in some blowouts. So everyone on that team has gotten game reps. It feels like, but yeah, that's pretty much it for the Montana State offense. Their offense is just damn impressive, guys. Moving defensively, Montana State this has been known as kind of the weakness of the team. Generally, just that's kind of how they've generally been recognized as a weaker defensive team. But newsflash, guys, this is a top five uh, total defense in the country this year. They're number 4 in the country this year in terms of yards per game. They're only giving up 281 yards per game. They've only given up 17 touchdowns on the season. Some of their players have more touchdowns than that individually, which is insane. Um, you know, Montana State's offense is a lot better. In the previous years, this is where they've been more susceptible to to teams being able to get themselves into games. But this year they have really been taking it to another level, right? They play a 4-2-5, 4-3 style of defense. In previous years, they would really stay mostly in cover 4 and kind of give you the underneath stuff and make you beat them deep. This year, they have honestly, or they wanted to force you to throw the ball 20 times in a game underneath, or 15 to 20 times and drive underneath and force quarterbacks to beat them and nickel and dime it down the field. And hey, last year the good quarterbacks were able to do that against Montana State. And so they saw that film and decided, hey, we're not going to let that happen anymore this year. And they've been playing a much more aggressive style of defense. They've been ramping up the blitz packages. They've been doing a better job. They haven't been giving up as many easy throws up the middle. I'd say the secondary is probably still more a weakness for them. I'm actually going to try to find some stats to talk about that, but they've been just generally a pretty dang good pretty dang good defense, guys. Like I said, they're the best offense in the conference, best defense in the conference. They're the best offense in the country, then the fourth best defense in the country in terms of yardage. They're and you got to take strength of schedule into account, but they're the best team Eastern has played so far this year by a long shot. And hey, it's going to be a tall task, but some uh, some names to watch out for. Pulling up my roster right now. So a couple of the big names to watch out for. They are missing a few starters. Danny Yu. I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name. One of their senior linebackers is out. He's going to be out for the rest of the year. They're also missing a couple of D linemen, if I'm remembering correctly, as well as a corner that played or a safety. I think it was a safety that plays a decent amount of snaps for them. I think it's Blake Stillwell. But other than that, guys, like they're relatively healthy for this point in the year, where a lot of teams say they're struggling. Most of their starters are scheduled to be playing. They're probably their best player on defense is number 41, Brody Grebe. He wore number 10 last year. He's an edge rusher for them. Really good defensive end. 6'3", 250. He's a Montana guy. 41 is kind of their defensive legacy number. It's just a legacy number for Montana State. So, anytime, hey, future reference, guys, number 41 on Montana State's usually a pretty good player, similar to Eastern's number 4. Grebe's a really good player. He gets to the passer very well, but he's a very capable run defender as well. Another important player, number 43, McCade O'Reilly, one of their middle linebackers, has really taken a huge step this year. Rylan Ort, he is their kind of nickel / safety. Typically, he plays kind of in the flat as an extra run defender a lot, similar to a Tommy Mellott or excuse me, not Tommy Mellott, Tommy McCormick from Idaho, or a Rex Connors from UC Davis. Kind of a similar style to them. I don't know if he's quite the same level player, but he plays a lot of nickel for them. Good player. He's another Missoula kid. Shout out to the Missoula kids defecting to Bozeman. I always love to see that. Those are kind of the bigger names defensively that come across my mind. But they really they're just kind of a really sound defense overall, in my opinion. McCade O'Reilly is leading the team in tackles right now. He has 44 total tackles on the year, 4.5 tackles for loss. Danny Yu, who is now out for the season, he had 6 TFLs coming into the year, but we're not going to talk about him. Rylan Ort, he has 33 tackles coming into this game, a tackle for loss. Brody Grebe has 7 tackles for loss and 6 sacks on the season. He's going to be a guy. The matchup with Grebe and our tackles is going to be a big one if Eastern hopes to throw the ball at all in this game. Bryce Grebe also has a sack on the year. Another solid player for them. I can't remember. He's a linebacker. That's right. Redshirt freshman linebacker. He's gotten a decent amount of playing time, even as a redshirt freshman, which is pretty damn impressive. Trying to think of any other like big names. I think that's mostly it for the big names on their defense. One of their safeties is a really good player. I cannot remember his name. Drew Polidor. That's it. Drew Polidor, a safety for them. Really good player. Got to watch out for. Probably don't want to throw it to his half of the field unless the guy is wide open, type of thing. Yeah. So for the most part, that's it for the offensive and defensive breakdowns. Kind of a long offensive and defensive breakdown. I know the defense got a little bit less than the offense. It's harder to talk about a defense when they've been just really solid. It's a lot nicer to talk about an offense that's been really good, in my opinion. But anyways, let's hear a word from our sponsor before we get into the keys to the game. Shout out to Walk On Apparel. The Eagles Power Hour is sponsored by Walk On Apparel. Walk On Apparel focuses on capturing Eastern's culture and traditions in apparel designs that are as different as they are affordable. Plus 10% of the profit from every sale gets donated right back to the Eagle Athletic Fund. That's a win for you and your alma mater. EPH listeners get 10% off using code EPH10 at checkout. That's EPH10. New designs drop throughout the season. Go check out walkon-apparel.com or go follow them on Twitter and Instagram. Go check it out. Go see all the new stuff that they have coming out. I love my Walk On Apparel stuff. Highly recommend you guys go check them out. All right, keys to the game. A couple matchups that are important to watch out for, and some things that'll be important if Eastern wants to keep this game close. Because right now, I didn't take a peek at the betting line. I think it's right around 18 points, which if I'm a betting man, feels a little low for the matchup I'm seeing right now. Montana State's a really good team, and what do they do elite? What are they elite at producing right now? And they have been all year, is producing explosive plays. And that has been Eastern's number one issue on defense is they have really struggled to slow down the explosive plays. And when they do, they actually play okay. I mean, they're never going to be a brick wall defense, but they're kind of I'd say they're a middle of the pack, they're a middle of the pack defense when they can reduce the explosive plays, which is something that they did versus Sacramento State and only gave it 28 points. That is something that they absolutely have to do in this game if they want to stand a chance in making this competitive. Hey, Montana State has never blown out Eastern on the red. They've beat them on the red, but they've never beat they've never beat Eastern by more than 10 points on the red turf. And Cheney, for the matter of fact, I believe. If Eastern wants to keep that streak up, they have to eliminate and take away the explosive plays, the explosive runs, the backbreaking runs like we saw with CJ Hutton and Lan Larson both had big ones in the UC Davis game. Elijah Cummings and Dede Buchanan had some explosive runs in the Idaho game. We saw Gilman have an explosive run in the Montana game. Those plays cannot happen in this game if Eastern wants to have a chance at keeping this game close. Montana State is going to want to lean on the run game. Obviously, that's their identity. Eastern has to be ready for, hey, one, they got to be able to slow down the run. I'm okay with giving up 4 yards of carry, right? I'm more worried about, are we going to give up the big plays, and are we going to give up big plays on play action, which is something that Montana State does very well. Their play action pass game to the tight ends is probably, I'd say it's up there with North Dakota State. South Dakota State as the most elite in the country. Um, so, the back end has to be very disciplined. We can't get caught sucking up, because that's when they hit you over the top. Um, Eastern has to eliminate the big plays. They have to slow down the big plays. If Eastern slows down the big plays, there is enough juice on this offense to keep the game close and competitive. But that is priority number one. Priority number two, which actually I like our chances of doing this, is Eastern has to make some big plays in special teams, right? Um, Eastern's been a really good special teams team all year. Actually, Mike Wortham is on his way to probably an All-American kick returning season right now. Um, the punt returning hasn't been quite as elite, but Efton Chisholm had a nice return last week. The punting has been good. The kickoffs have been pretty good. The one thing that we could see some improvement on is just the consistency on the field goal kicking side of things, but like, misses are going to happen. It's not that crazy to miss a 53-yarder. It's not that crazy to miss an extra point every once in a while. You don't want to see it, but it is not the atrocious special teams unit that I remember seeing in 2021 when Eastern was in the playoffs and just they were losing games because of special teams. That is not what we've seen this year by Eastern special teams. It's been, actually, they've been winning games for Eastern with the onside kicks. Would not surprise me to see another onside kick this game. Wouldn't surprise me at all. Anyways, hey, win the day in special teams. That's a simple one that I think Eastern can do. Eastern has to win the turnover battle. I know this is one that we hit on every week, but guys, if there's a chance for Eastern to win this game, they have to make Montana State turn the ball over. That's the only competitive game that Montana State has played this year, is against New Mexico, when Montana State shot themselves in the foot with turnovers. If Eastern can force a couple turnovers, if Eastern can get a nice, like a strip sack, or punch a ball out from a running back that hasn't played in a few weeks, with Julius Davis or something, that could be a huge, huge deal. Turnovers have been a huge deal in the history of this, the history of this matchup, I guess. And remember, in 2022, Eastern probably should have won that game and fumbled it away late, and then there was a turnover that just, handed Montana State the game. Eastern's got to win the turnover battle if they want a chance to win this one. And offensively, I think a big key is, hey, how does Kekoa look health-wise? He was dealing with a little calf injury. I was a little worried about it. I thought he might not play in this game with the way that he was looking towards the end of the Idaho game. Like, he looked fine on the field, but the way we didn't see him after that had me really worried. Honestly, I'm not too incredibly worried about it now. I walk by their practice back on the way back from classes every day, and I've seen Kekoa in pads. So I have a feeling that he will play in this game. Will he look 100%? We'll see. Generally the secondary has been where Montana State has been a little bit more susceptible to giving up yards. They're not bad by any means. They're 21 in the country in terms of pass yards given up a game at 179. Like, that's still a really damn good defense. But that is the one spot that they've been susceptible. I will say Eastern is probably the best offense that I think they're the best offensive unit that Montana State has seen all year and will see until probably Montana. Just looking at their schedule, I guess you could say New Mexico State, or New Mexico is up there with them, but New Mexico is what, they're 3-5 in the Mountain West right now, which the Mountain West is not good, right? So they've been putting up some points, but I think Eastern has a chance to put up a few more points than most teams. Montana State has given up some points to some teams that have relatively okay offenses. The key to that is, hey, Eastern cannot be predictable. If Eastern is predictable, they're screwed. And we see that in the Portland State game when Montana State went to Portland. They only gave up 14 points, and that's because Portland State's offense is pretty unpredictable with Dante Sacheret. We saw that versus Idaho. Idaho's pretty predictable with Jack Wagner at quarterback. They knew exactly what was coming. Eastern has to be able to be dynamic. I think Eastern will be able to run the ball a little bit. We'll see. It's going to be tough to move some of their defensive linemen, but I think our offensive line, again, I think our offensive line is probably the best that they've played so far this season. And so I think Eastern has a chance to put up some points. But the key is, hey, Eastern can't get themselves in such a giant hole if they want to keep this game competitive. And, Eastern just has to play sound and not be predictable offensively. They just have to do their thing. They have to put up the points that we know that they can. Will they do that against a really elite defense? We will see. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to run the ball on Montana State. They're more analogous to probably to UC Davis. I still can't believe that Eastern was able to run the ball on Idaho and not on UC Davis. Schematically, Montana State is a little bit more, I'd say they're more similar to Idaho than they are to UC Davis, which is probably a good thing in Eastern's chances to run the ball. But if you're going to be more of a run the ball control style of offense that Eastern tends to kind of be sometimes this year, hey, you gotta get some stops defensively. You gotta score off of those stops defensively, and you can't give up those explosive plays. I think Montana State probably, they're obviously going to be a big favorite. They're an 17.5 point favorite. I think they are. But Eastern has a chance. I think they have a puncher's chance to ruin some seed hopes for Montana State. But this is a really tough matchup for Eastern. What Montana State does very well is what Eastern has not done very well so far this year. And so I think it'll be a high-scoring game, but we'll get into the prediction here in just a bit as we talk about my favorite segment every week. Hey, Patty's Picks, right? I've already gone through Patty's Picks a couple of times this week just because I've been on a couple other shows this week, Big Sky Podcast Network Power Rankings show that we don't even really do power rankings on anymore at this point in the year. It's more about playoffs, as well as the Tubs of the Club show earlier this week. They didn't have anyone, so I just hopped on with them. Of course, I used to go to school there, so I talk about Idaho football. Getting into Patty's Picks this week, hey, this is kind of a slow week nationally. There's only one ranked matchup, and in the Big Sky, there's only one, maybe two matchups that really should be competitive. Hey, the Eastern game could be competitive, but Sac State at Portland, or Portland State at Sac State is probably the least interesting game, but it will be kind of a fun game. Neither of these teams are playoff contenders anymore. 1-6 Portland State, 3-5 Sacramento State. I think this is a high-scoring game. Both offenses are pretty good. Both defenses have been, Sac State's defense was good, and then they've just gone downhill since they played Eastern, really, which was surprising. I thought Sac State's defense looked really good in the preseason. They just haven't been at the same level, or in the out of conference. They just haven't been at the same level. I picked Portland State in this game, or excuse me, I picked Sacramento State in this game. Stingers down, but I just think Sac State has too much talent on that roster to lose a game at home to Portland State. This is a very Sacramento State type of game to lose, at least 2024 Sac State. But I think they come out with the win here versus Portland State. Next, this is the least interesting game in the conference this year. Northern Colorado is going to UC Davis. UC Davis 7-1. They're tied for first in the conference. They're number 2 in the rankings right now in the conference because Montana State's undefeated. They have the FBS win. UC Davis will win this one. It won't be close. Northern Colorado just isn't that good, and that's pretty much all she wrote for that one. I'm not going to get too much into it. Weber State is going to Northern Arizona. Northern Arizona has something to play for. They're 4-4. If they win out, they have a chance at the playoffs, but it's pretty unlikely that they do that. They have to go through Weber State and Eastern and get some help. But Weber State has just been a dumpster fire, guys. They beat Montana, and after that, they have not won a Big Sky football game. They lost away. They choked away the game versus Sac State. They lost the game to Northern Colorado. I like this matchup for NAU, and I think NAU takes it. I think NAU wins this one by like 2 scores. All right, sorry for the weird pause. I had an interruption, but we're back. Next one, Montana is going to Cal Poly. This one actually I think has more intrigue than most might expect when Montana is going to a 2-5 Cal Poly. But stylistically, I think Cal Poly has some things going for them. They're not a dumpster fire offensively. And Montana, to this point, they kind of have been defensively. They've just been not good defensively generally. I mean, they played some decent offenses, but like they gave up 50 plus to Weber. They gave up they gave up a bunch I would say a bunch is a little dramatic, but Arizona or Northern Arizona is able to move the ball on them. The only defense that they've really looked like good against, or offense that they've looked good against, would be like Morehead State and Northern Colorado. I think this one's a weirdly interesting. Montana will win the game, but I think Cal Poly will cover the spread. Weirdly enough, I think Cal Poly has a chance to just move the ball and score in Montana, and I think they have a chance if weirdly, they've been able to stop the run pretty good this year, and they've been able to get to the quarterback a little bit this year. They got a guy like Elijah Ponder that's probably, he's going to be a guy that gets looks on Sundays next year. I think he's going to be able to get to the quarterback 1 or 2 times in this game, and Montana will win. They're the way more talented team, but I think Cal Poly keeps it a little frisky. That's the last one. So besides the Eastern game, so I'm picking Northern Arizona to beat Weber State, UC Davis to beat Northern Colorado, Montana to beat Cal Poly, Sac State to beat Portland State, and the big game for Eastern. Hey, I think Montana State's going to win this football game, to be honest, guys. This is not a good matchup for Eastern Washington, right? Now, where this becomes a little different is I think Eastern does have the potential to keep it competitive and keep it close, but I'm not sure if I see that happening, guys. Right now, I'm not feeling very optimistic. I hate this matchup, guys. This is, they do what we do bad. They do that really good. They're really good at explosive plays. They're really good at taking care of the football game. Taking care of the football, which is something that we need to stay in games typically. They're really good at scoring. They're really efficient offense. Eastern has done well against not very efficient offenses. They run the hell out of the ball. Eastern does not stop the run very effectively. I think this will take a lot of things bouncing Eastern's way for Eastern to have a shot in this game. Would not surprise me if Eastern ends up being in this game in the fourth quarter at some point and losing the game by 10 points. But honestly, guys, I think Montana State's on another level, and I think they might be on a crash course with the Dakota school for Frisco this year. If I'm being totally honest, guys, that's what I'm seeing in this matchup. I think Montana State's just at a different level this year that we've never seen from a Montana State school. Honestly, right now this Montana State team looks like a team that could be one of the all-time great Big Sky teams of all time. So hey, it's gonna be a tough matchup. Eastern has the talent to make this game frisky. If Eastern plays the hell out of one of their best games and Montana State turns the ball over a couple times, hey, Eastern has a chance to co-win this game, but it's going to be really tough. I think Montana State wins this one. I think it's going to be right at 17 points-ish. It might be more. I think Montana State will end up covering the spread of 17.5. They're a damn good football team, guys, but hey, don't let that stop you guys from coming out to Ruse supporting the players. And hey, you might see one of the biggest upsets in Big Sky. I don't know if it's Big Sky history, but what might feel like one of the biggest upsets in Big Sky history, 2-6 Eastern beating Montana State, who is looking ahead in their schedule right now against the big teams and their 2 seed. And they're kind of looking at this like, hey, we should be hosting through the semifinals. Road to Frisco goes through Montana State, goes through Bozeman. Hey, if Eastern can knock them off, that would be damn fun. But yeah, guys, I think Montana State wins, but I'm rooting for the Eags either way. We're gonna give the Eags all the support we can give them, and hey, we're hoping for a fun football game this week. That'll do it for me, guys. Thanks everyone for listening. I'm running a little short on time today, so right around 45 minutes is usually what we do. But sorry for it being a little later in the week than I was expecting. life happens, guys. All right. Thanks everyone for listening. Don't know when the reaction show will be out. If it's a big blowout, I don't know how apt I'm gonna be to rewatch the game, so we'll see. But keep an eye out early next week for a recap. Another previewing the who do we play next? I think we play Northern Colorado next. So we'll have a preview for that coming out next week around Thursday-ish. So thanks everyone for listening, and go Eags.